can tell you that I'm insane.
أعوذ بالله من الشيطان اللعين الرجيم. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم. الحمد لله بارئ الخلائق الأجمعين، باعث الأنبياء والمرسلين، ثم الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء، حبيب قلوبنا وشفيع ذنوبنا، أبي القاسم محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. والصلاة والسلام على أهل بيته الطيبين الطاهرين المعصومين المظلومين، لا سيما ولي الله الأعظم حجة الله ابن الحسن صاحب الأمر والزمان. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ولعنة الله على أعدائهم أجمعين من الآن إلى قيام يوم الدين. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. صلى الله عليك يا مولاي يا أبا عبد الله. يا رحمة الله الواسعة ويا باب نجاة الأمة، يا غريب الغرباء، يا مظلوم كربلاء. السلام على من جعل الله الشفاء في تربته. السلام على من الإجابة تحت كبته. السلام على ساكن كربلاء. فيا ليتنا ثم يا ليتنا كنا معكم سادتي يا سادتي، فنفوز فوزا عظيما. أما بعد، خاطب مولانا إمام الصادق جده الحسين ثم قال: أشهد أنك قد أقمت الصلاة وآتيت الزكاة وأمرت بالمعروف ونهيت عن المنكر حتى أتاك اليقين يا أبا عبد الله. صدق الإمام وآمنا به. زينوا مجالسكم بذكر محمد وآل محمد. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. ثانيا، لقضاء الحوائج ولتعجيل الفرج. اللهم صل على محمد وآل محمد. The establishment of Salat is supposed to have a tangible effect on our character and on our outward behavior. Therefore, Rasulullah says that the Salat is a mi'raj of the mu'min, in that the Salat as an act of worship. A person is supposed to experience an extreme and an intense state of spirituality, where he very passionately, yet very humbly expresses his love, his unconditional obedience, and his submission towards the Lord of the universe. And perhaps for this reason, amongst others, the Prophet of Islam used to say, As-salatu amududdin, that salat is the founding pillar of the religion, in that if this pillar of the religion, yani salat, is upheld, then the entire religion is stable. And on the other hand, if the divinity of salat was to be demolished, then the entire religion comes crumbling down. Having said this, in the ziyarah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, which is taught to us by Maulana Imam Ja'far ibn Muhammad al-Sadiq, salawatullahi wa salamuhu alayhi, while addressing his grandfather Sayyid al-Shuhada, he says, Ashhadu annaka qad aqamta as-salat. Over here there is a difference between two concepts, or rather there are two concepts that have a big difference between them. The first concept is ada'us salat. The second concept is iqamatus salat. Ada'us salat as a phrase may be defined as being or as performing or executing a taklif shar'i, in that you perform an action for the action which it is. To perform salat at its awwal waqt for what it is, in terms of qiyam, in terms of ruku, in terms of sujood, in terms of tashahhud, without fail in its prescribed times, then we say that this is referred to as ada'us salat. However, iqamatus salat is a daraja which is much higher. Iqamatus salat means not only do you perform the prayer, rather you become a personification of the meanings that you utter within the words of salat. Therefore, in your ziyarah, when you recite Ashhadu annaka kad aqamta salat, in essence what you are saying is to Sayyid al-Shuhada, Ya Imam, I bear witness that your entire life is an embodiment of the values and the philosophies of salat. Ya Sayyid al-Shuhada, your entire life, you are a manifestation of those divine values that salat represents. We should look at or analyze this statement by taking 3 examples from the event of Karbala. Within these 3 examples, how does Sayyid al-Shuhada personify or become the embodiment of salat? The first one, Salatul Jama'ah. Take for instance Salatul Jama'ah. One of the underlying philosophies behind Salatul Jama'ah is that the entire Muslim Ummah stands together in worship towards Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. You will find that the principle of Salatul Jama'ah is that the Muslims, when they stand together, there is no preference to race, there is no preference to color, there is no preference to any type of wealth. Regardless of a Muslim's background, they stand shoulder to shoulder in Islam. The philosophy behind Salatul Jama'ah is that it is supposed to cultivate a sense of equality and to abolish this concept of discrimination within our lives. The biggest lesson that we learn from Salatul Jama'ah is that when I go outside after the Salat, after I have recited Jama'ah, when I am conducting my dealings with other human beings, when I am conducting my affairs with other Muslims, I do not discriminate amongst them. There should not be, the way we say in Kiswahili, there should not be any type of madarao towards anybody else, because he is less than me or his color is different than me. Ya habibi, innama akramakum indallah atqakum. And this example or this philosophy was manifested or shown by Sayyid al-Shuhada on the day of Ashura, in the way that he treated his companions and the way that he treated his family members. There was absolutely no difference between this. Look, on the day of Ashura, a piece of his heart, his son Ali al-Akbar has been martyred on the battlefield. Imam al-Hussein, the historians tells us, walks towards the wounded body of Ali al-Akbar. He puts his head on his lap, and then the Imam puts his cheek on his cheek, out of sorrow and grief for who? For his son Ali al-Akbar. Yet in the battlefield, on the same war, when Joan, the Abyssinian Shaheed, Sahabi, may we be sacrificed for the dust under the feet of Joan, the servant of Abu Dhar al-Ghaffari. When he fell on the battlefield and has been struck by a sword, he cries out, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah. You see, Imam al-Hussein walks towards Joan in the same way that he put the head of Ali al-Akbar on his lap. He puts the head of Joan on his lap. The way he put his cheek on the cheek of Ali al-Akbar, he puts his cheek on the cheek of Joan. There is no difference whether Joan was from Abyssinia, whether he was a free man or a servant. Principles of equality and non-discrimination in life. Now, where are we? Where am I when it comes to implementing non-discrimination in my life? Am I with Imam al-Hussein or am I against Imam al-Hussein? People pray Jama'ah day in, day out, years for a lifetime. But where is the philosophy of Jama'ah implemented during life? When a person implements this in life, then we say, Ashhadu annaka qad aqamta as-salat. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. Right, number one. Number two, the entire Muslim Ummah, minimum of 10 times in a day in Suratul Hamd, we say Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen, Ar-Rahmanir Rahim. 10 times we call out to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala saying, Ya Rahmanu, Ya Rahim. One of the philosophies behind this is that the way you seek mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you should conduct your dealings and your affairs with mercy towards the rest of mankind. Now we have a hadith from Amirul Mu'mineen that says, La yurham man la yarham. How can a person expect mercy from the divine when he himself does not deal with mercy with other mankind? For the philosophy behind saying, one of the philosophies behind saying Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim 10 times in a day is that it should cultivate a nature of mercy within our hearts when we go out and deal with the rest of the people. You see this manifestation of the verse Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim in the actions of Sayyid al-Shuhada on his way to Karbala when he is met by the army of Hur ibn Yazid al-Riyahi. This was an army that was coming to kill him, an army that was coming to wage war against them. When the Imam meets the army of Hur, he finds that these people are thirsty. They do not have water. The Makatil say that one of the companions or one of the members who was in the army of Hur was so overcome by thirst, he could not even see straight. When the Imam was pouring water for him in his cup, he could not hold his cup straight. For the Imam made him drink the water with his own blessed hands. Mercy, not only towards those who are your friends. Mercy not only to those who are from the Shias of Ali Muhammad or from the Muslims. Mercy even towards your enemy. When a person conducts this in his lifetime, then the meaning of Ar-Rahman and Ar-Rahim is established. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ala Muhammad. The third value of Salat, when you say and you refer to Imam al-Hussein by saying Ashhadu annaka kad akamta as-salat, Takbiratul Ihram. When you perform your Takbiratul Ihram and you say Allahu Akbar, and your body and your mind is now detached in its entirety from the dunya. It is detached from every affair that is connected to the dunya, and now your sole undivided attention is towards the creator of the universe. This is the representation of Allahu Akbar. And you find that the Salat of Sayyid al-Shuhada on the day of Ashura is the highest representation of the meaning of Takbiratul Ihram. On the day of Ashura, when the battle is at its peak, heads are being chopped off, limbs are being severed, the enemies are at the brink of the tents. Abu Thumama looks at Imam al-Hussein and he says to him, Ya ibn Rasulullah, ruhi lakal fida. He says, O son of Rasulullah, may my soul be sacrificed for you. The enemies indeed have come close to us, and I will make sure that nothing happens to you or no harm reaches you until I am killed. But he says, Ya ibn Rasulullah, I wish to meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala after I have recited my salat. Imam al-Hussein looks at him and then looks at the skies where he sees the sun. It has reached the position of zawal. He says to Abu Thumama, Yarhamakallah, ذكرت الصلاة جعلك الله مع المصلين. He says, peace be upon you. May the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala be upon you. You have remembered Salat. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala raise you or keep you with the musalli. Abu Mikhnaf in his Maktal says that at the heat of the battle at the time of Dhuhr, Sayyid al-Shuhada himself recites the Adhan, and then he organizes the ranks of his companions to recite Salat al-Dhuhr. Alama al-Majlisi in Bihar says that they recited Salat al-Khawf, Allahu Akbar, on the burning desert sands of Karbala. Imam al-Hussein faces towards Makkah al-Mukarramah. He has two companions in front of him defending him or protecting him. At this time, Imam al-Hussein says Allahu Akbar for his salat, and he does not care the number of arrows or the number of swords and the number of spears that have been flung in his direction. It is as if the Imam has forgotten his own thirst for 3 days. Ya Sayyid al-Shuhada, the children are thirsty. Ya Sayyid al-Shuhada, from Fajr until Dhuhr, you have been carrying the bodies of your dead companions back to the tent. Mako, alhamdulillahi rabbil alameen. Ehna, where is our salat? And where is the salat which the A'imma require us to have? A person cannot expect to be from the companions of Imam Sahib al-Amr Ajjalallahu ta'ala farajahu sharif. If he does not maintain his prayers. Our word is not even in iqamatus salat. Iqamatus salat is a daraja of the a'la illiyin. Our word over here is ada'us salat. And I don't want to make anybody despair or to be in a state of despair that because I do not pray, that my azadari will not be accepted or that I will never be with the Imam. La ya habibi. have mercy or have faith in the mercy of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and use these blessed days of Muharram to make a covenant and to make an oath with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, make an oath with Imam Sahib al-Amr, make an oath with Sayyid al-Shuhada. Ya Imam, I'm defected in my salah. My salah is not perfect, whether in terms of concentration, whether in terms of performance of salah. But Ya Imam, you help me, you strengthen. And you see how the nur and the inspiration comes into your hearts. Don't we say, Imam al-Hussein, Misbahul Huda wa Safinatul Najat? Misbahul Huda shunu, the lantern of guidance. It is by attendance of majalis azah such as these that our du'as are mustajab. Du'as for not only things that are madiyya, materialistic, but things that are also ma'nawiyya. For the days of Ashura, the days of Muharram, we should also use these to ask for the higher things in life, like increased levels of concentration in salah. Sallu ala Muhammadin wa ali Muhammad. Ahibba'i, from tonight we begin to commemorate the azah and the martyrdom of the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada. From the companions that were martyred, Sayyid al-Shuhada used to say on the night of Ashura that I do not know of any other companions better than my companions. Companions of Rasulullah on one side, companions of Amir al-Mu'mineen on one side, but the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada on the other side. And from amongst the companions who attained martyrdom in Karbala was a staunch person in Aqidah, Muhib, Muwali, by the name of Abbas ibn Abi Shabib al-Shakiri. وَمَا أَدْرَاكَ مَا Abbas. The traditions tell us that Abbas was a companion of Amir al-Mu'mineen from Hamadan, from the tribe of Shakiri. The tribe of Shakiri in its entirety was a tribe that was well known for their wilayah, for their love towards Amir al-Mu'mineen, such that on the battlefield on the day of Siffin, Amir al-Mu'mineen turns around to his companions and he says to them, لَوْ تَمَّتْ عَدَدَهُمْ أَلْفًا لَعُبِدَ اللَّهِ حَقَّ عِبَادَتِهِ. Amir al-Mu'mineen tells his companions, if from the tribe of Bani Shakir there were 1,000 people, only 1,000 people, the likes of Abbas, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala would have been worshipped across the entire earth. Antum Shi'at Dar es Salaam, make Abbas your role model, make the tribe of Bani Shakir your role model. Your existence over here in Dar es Salaam, the way you conduct your azah, the way you conduct your majalis, inshallah through your community, people will gain hidayah and come towards the path of Sayyid al-Shuhada. Sallu ala Muhammad wa ali Muhammad. For Abbas, staunch companion, those of us who wish that we were from the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada, those of us who wish we were from the companions or we are from the companions of the 12th Imam, look at the characteristics of Abbas. The historian Sheikh al-Ha'iri, when he describes Abbas ibn Abi Shabib, he says, كَانَ شُجَاعًا كَانَ خَتِيبًا مُتَحَجِّدًا. He says Abbas was a person who had courage. Abbas was a person who was a khatib, eloquence in speech. Abbas was a mutahajjid, a person who would spend the entire night awake in Salat al-Tahajjud. This is how a person reaches the highest state of wilayah. For Abbas played an important role and played a crucial role in the revolution of Sayyid al-Shuhada from the very first days. When Imam al-Hussein sent Muslim bin Aqil into Kufa, When Muslim bin Aqil came to Kufa, the traditions tell us that he was in the house of Mukhtar for the very first time. And at this point, all the close Shias such as Sulaiman ibn Sard and Habib ibn Madahir and Abis ibn Abi Shabib al-Shakiri were present. When Muslim bin Aqil comes to Kufa in the house of Mukhtar, Muslim reads for them a letter from Imam al-Hussein, and he says to them, "O people, if you pledge your allegiance towards me, I will guide you to the path of victory and I will guide you towards the heavens." Muslim bin Aqil asked the people, "Are you ready to support me?" The first person to stand up at that time was Abis ibn Abi Shabib al-Shakiri, where he stands up and he says to Muslim bin Aqil in his famous words, he says to Muslim bin Aqil, "I don't know what the people of Kufa have hidden in their hearts, but when I speak to you, I can speak for myself, and I represent through my words the Aqidah which is inside my heart." He says, وَلَأَجِبَنَّكُمْ إِذَا دَعَوْتُمْ وَلَأُقَاتِلَنَّ مَعَكُمْ عَدُوَّكُمْ وَلِأَضْرِبَنَّ بِسَيْفِي حَتَّى أَلْقَى اللَّهَ لَا أُرِيدُ بِذَلِكَ مِنَ إِلَّا مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Shabib stands up, or Abis stands up, and he says to Muslim bin Aqil, "Ya Muslim, if you call us, you give us the call, I am the first one to respond. Ya Muslim, if you fight, then I will be the first one to fight against your enemies, and I will be the first one to raise my sword in your protection until I meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And from my stance, I require or I ask for nothing except from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Ikhlas niyyah. وَلَا أُرِيدُ بِذَلِكَ إِلَّا مَا عِنْدَ اللَّهِ. Ya Muslim, you call us towards the wilayah, I will give my life for you. As for the jaza, my jaza is with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. Abis, together with Habib ibn Madahir and Muslim ibn Awsaja, played a great role in collecting the bay'ah from the people of Kufa. And in the beginning of Dhul Hijjah, when Muslim bin Aqil had collected 18,000 signatures, or 18,000 people had given bay'ah to him, all of them accepting the wilayah of Sayyid al-Shuhada, Muslim bin Aqil writes a letter to Imam al-Hussein from Kufa, saying to him, "Ya Aba Abdullah," to paraphrase or to summarize the contents of the letter, he says to him, "O Imam, I have gathered for you 18,000 companions and supporters who will defend you till the last drop of their blood." This was when, before Ibn Ziyad came to Kufa. So we get an idea from the traditions that this was the beginning of Dhul Hijjah. Muslim bin Aqil then sends this letter with Abis ibn Shabib al-Shakiri to Imam al-Hussein. Abis reaches Makkah and he delivers the letter for Imam al-Hussein in the beginning of Dhul Hijjah. By the time Abis reaches Makkah and Imam receives the letter, he leaves Makkah, we said yesterday, on the 8th of Dhul Hijjah. On the other hand, what is happening in Kufa? The people decided to betray Muslim bin Aqil, and Ibn Ziyad martyrs him. This is how Abis reached Makkah from Kufa. And he was together with the Imam for the entire period from the time Imam left Makkah to the time he reached to the time that he reached Karbala. Abis was one of those companions, staunch in his wilayah. The exact format of the battlefield, how the companions attacked after Fajr, and where the Imam gave the khutbah. After the general attack on the day of Ashura, half of the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada were killed in this first attack, which was a group attack. And then after that, there was one-on-one duels and one-on-one challenges that happened. When Abis, the traditions tell us, when Abis saw that majority of the companions of Sayyid al-Shuhada have been martyred, and that he's being surrounded by the enemies, and the women and the children are weeping, the tradition tells us that Abis goes to the Imam It tells us in the Maqtal says, فَتَقَدَّمَ عَابِسْ عَلَى الْحُسَيْنِ عَلَيْهِ السَّلَامِ وَسَلَّمَ عَلَيْهِ ثُمَّ قَالَ يَا أَبَا عَبْدِ اللَّهِ أَمَا وَاللَّهِ. Abbas comes to Imam al-Hussein, he performs his salam, or he gives his salam to Imam al-Hussein, then he says to him, Ama wallah ma amsa ala dhahri al-ard qaribun wala ba'idun a'azzu alayyi wala ahabbu ilayyi minka. Abbas tells Sayyid al-Shuhada, I swear by Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, over the passage of time, there is nobody across the face of this earth who is more dear to me, who is more beloved to me than you. Abbas tells Imam al-Hussein, وَلَوْ كَدَّرْتُ أن أدفع عنكم الذيم والقتل بشيء أعز من نفسي ودمي لفعلت. Abbas tells Sayyid al-Shuhada, if I could protect you with something much greater, with something much more dearer than my life and my blood, Sayyid al-Shuhada would have given. If I was able to be brought back to life another 5 times, another 10 times, another 100 times, and each time I come back to life to be killed for you, Imam, I would have done that. Oh, yes. He kisses the feet of the Imam, he kisses the hands of the Imam. He says, much more. Allah has given us one life and one body, and there is nothing more I can give for you. Imam looks at him and the Imam smiles. Abbas takes permission from Sayyid al-Shuhada to walk into the battlefield and to perform the jihad. As Abbas is walking out of the tent, he looks at Imam al-Hussein and he says, Assalamu alayka ya Aba Abdullah, ashhadu anni ala hudaka wa huda abi. He recites his final shahada as he is leaving out from the tent of Imam al-Hussein. He says, Ya Aba Abdullah, assalamu alayka. I bear witness that I am on your path and I am on the path of your father, Amir al-Mu'mineen. Allah, A'izzai, I want you to come into Karbala al-Muqaddas now. In your mind you can imagine the Khaymaga. Abbas is coming out of the Khaymaga into the Maidan. The traditions tell us that Abbas walks into the battlefield wearing a helmet which is usually worn for war to protect the sides of his forehead and to protect his head. He comes out with his sword. As he walks into the Maidan, one of the people from the enemies by the name of Rabi ibn Tamim sees Abbas and he recognizes Abbas. He cries out to the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, وَيْلَكُمْ أَعْرِفُهُ هَذَا أَسَدُ الْأُسُودِ هَذَا إِبْنِ أَبِي الشَّبِيبِ لَا يَخْرُجَنَّ عَلَيْهِ أَحَدًا. Shabib or Rabi ibn Tamim cries out to the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad, O people, I have recognized this person. This is Abbas. I have seen how he has fought in the wars of Siffin. I have seen how he has killed people in the battle of Siffin. I warn you, nobody from the army of Umar ibn Sa'ad should come out and fight him, because you do not have a chance against him. Abbas walks into the battlefield with his sword, surrounded by the enemies, alone in the Maidan, looking at them, sometimes towards the right, sometimes towards the left, crying out, Allah min barizin, Allah min barizin. Is there anyone who can come out and challenge me? Is there any one of you who has enough courage to come and fight me on the battlefield? The army of Umar ibn Sa'ad is quiet. Not a single one of them are able to come in front of Abbas. Until Umar ibn Sa'ad calls out to them. He calls out to the army, to the entire army. He says, وَيْلَكُمْ أَرْضِقُوهُ بِالْحِجَارَةِ. Umar ibn Sa'ad cries out and says, woe be upon you, O people. If you do not have enough courage to fight him one-on-one, then begin pelting him with stones from every direction. Allah, the Maqtal narrates that the people, the enemies, surrounded Abbas from every direction. They started picking picking up stones and they started pelting the stones in the direction of Abbas. Allah, Allah, ya Abbas. Do you know what the reaction of Abbas was? The Maktal tells us, فَلَمَّا رَأَى ذَلِكَ أَلْقَى دِرْعَهُ وَمَشْرَبَهُ وَرَمَى نَفْسَهُ عَلَيْهِمْ وَأَشَدَّ عَلَيْهِمْ حَتَّى تَرَدَ مِنْهُمْ أَكْثَرُ مِنْ مِئَتَيْنِ. The Maktal tells us when the people started throwing stones on Abbas, Abbas, when he saw this, he removed his armor, he removed his helmet, he threw it on his ground and he ran towards the enemies who were pelting stones at him. Ajib, Junoon, love for Sayyid al-Shuhada. Abbas runs towards them and he disperses over 200 of the kuffar. They don't know how to react towards him. What is this person thinking? We are throwing stones towards him to kill him, and over here, instead of protecting himself, he throws his armor, he throws his helmet and he runs towards us. Rabi ibn Tamim says, we were stunned and we didn't know what to do. We didn't know how to react, so we all ran away from Abbas saying, who is this crazy person? Rabi ibn Tamim says, I shouted out to Abbas and I said to him, oh Abbas, are you not fearful? Are you not scared that you dive into the ocean of war and you don't even protect your head? Do you know what the reply of Abbas was? Allah, Allah. Abbas shouts back at Rabi ibn Tamimi and he says to him, Ma asab al-muhibbu fi tariqi habibihi sahlun. Abbas says to Rabi ibn Tamimi, when a lover walks in the path towards the one he loves, he does not feel the pain. Ya Ma'tamiz, Abbas ibn Abi Shabib is our role model, the one who performs the matam and engages in any pain for Imam al-Hussein, does not feel pain. Allah, Allah. This is why the poet Hakkan, when he says, Hubbul Husseini ajannani, Allah, the love of Imam al-Hussein has driven me to a point of insanity. Junoon. The Maktal tells us that Abbas went towards them and he started to strike them with the sword. In his Maktal, Shaykh al-Ahiri mentions that Abbas did not strike a single person from the enemy, except that with every strike he killed that enemy and sent them into Jahannam wa bi'sal masir, until Abbas performed the jihad until he killed over 150 people from the army of Omar ibn Sa'ad. At this point, Omar ibn Sa'ad and Rabi ibn Tamimi come together. They decide that they will collectively attack on Abbas from every direction. For the Maktal tells us, فَهَاجَمُوا عَلَيْهِ مِنْ كُلِّ جَانِبٍ فَضَرَبُوهُ بِالسُّيُوفِ وَتَعَنَهُ بِالرِّمَاحِ. The Maktal tells us from every direction they came and they began to attack Abbas. Somebody from the right would attack him with a sword. Somebody from the left would pierce him with a spear. When Abbas ibn Shabib fell on the ground because of all the injuries that he had sustained, they began to shoot arrows on the body of Abbas. Abbas fell down on the ground of Karbala. Shaykh al-Ahiri mentions that Abbas only had a little bit of breath remaining in his body. These were the last breaths, the dying breaths of Abbas. As he lay down on the ground of Karbala, he looked with tears in his eyes towards the camp of Abu Abdullah. At this time, Umar ibn Sa'ad sends a contingency of men. The Maktal tells us, فَاحْتَزُّ رَأْسَهُ. Allah, Allah, they began to behead Abbas while he was still alive. وَأَبِسَا وَمَذْلُومًا إِنَّا لِلَّهِ وَإِنَّا إِلَيْهِ رَاجِعُونَ وَلَعْنَةُ اللَّهِ عَلَى قَوْمِ الظَّالِمِينَ مِنَ الْأَوَّلِينَ وَالْآخِرِينَ. أعظم الله لك الأجر يا مولانا يا صاحب الأمر. نسألك يا الله بحق سيد الشهداء ثبتنا على صراط المستقيم.